Hi, everyone. I am Donna Reed, and this is Donna Reed Talks Voice. And this is a conversation with the last three lessons, if you've been following this season, with the last three lessons that I've just given. So, everybody's here. Hi, everybody.
Hello.
So, we've got Abby, we've got Camilo, we've got Cam, and the fabulous Nellie Beavers, who is, I don't even have enough words to say how fabulous this woman is. Anybody who knows her knows how unbelievably fabulous she is. So she's going to lead us off in this discussion and take it away, Nellie.
Thank you. So I'm lucky. I know everybody on this call today, but Donna, it was your first time working with all of them, and you all are young. We were in school many years ago, Donna and I, and so I'm curious how is today's lesson for you different than what you're experiencing in any of your training, either in college or high school? Because I know all of you have sung in high school too. So how is it different, or how is it the same? Abby, I'll start with you because you nodded real hard.
Yes. So it's different than what I'm doing right now in school. Right now, I'm taking, of course, I did voice lessons, but I'm doing vocal coaching, which is focusing more on like the acting and the character and all that work since I'm studying musical theater. And so I feel like I'm not really getting like the vocal technique work that I was getting. And I love working on that because I really want to keep growing my voice and to see where are my extremes and what am I capable of. So it's different for me in that aspect. Even when I had voice lessons, like it was technique based, but I still felt like it was more working on like the character and how you're sounding and how do you create these sounds and etc. So for me, this kind of it reminded me of when I was younger and taking lessons, because when I was younger, it was more strategic work like this that Donna does.
Nice, nice. How about you, Cam?
Um, like I said before, I stopped focusing on voice after I graduated high school. I started focusing on other things. But like the major difference that like I noticed between like learning and going through a lesson with Donna versus going through a lesson with like a high school director or a middle school director was how we got to the pitch that we were supposed to get to. She would start us out low and then get higher. If we needed to get low, she'd start high and then go down. And like with the other lessons, it was a make sure that your core, your abdomen wasn't tight, that you were loose and moving around all the time. Whereas high school, if I was trying to hit like a high note, our directors, Abby and I had the same director in high school. It would be sing it, and then if you need it, it's like a punch, whereas your abdomen gets super tight to force that tone or that pitch out. And that was with everything. So it was really weird listening to Donna go, don't get tight, don't do this, do the complete opposite of what we were trained to do. And just, if it comes, it comes. And if it's bad, but you can fix it. It's not just a hit it and get it then at that moment, or I'm going to yell at you. She was genuinely like super friendly and nice about it. It's just like, it's going to sound gross, it's going to sound weird, but don't shy away from that. And that was like, I don't know, that was really cool. I haven't ever had somebody tell me not to punch a note in or hit a note. So yeah, that was like the major difference I noticed that I enjoyed.
That's amazing. That's amazing. And Donna, I'll bring you back around to that in just a second, because I know you've got lots to say about that.
Oh,
But Camilo, how about you?
For me, at the collegiate level, I really only saw classical. They kind of front load at Oklahoma City University. They kind of front load the classical training, and then after your junior recital, you can kind of start leaning more into the music theater side of things. So it was a very, very different going from like strictly classical to Donna's approach, which was I loved the approach of like functionality versus aesthetic. Like I think that's such a genius approach to this because you can sound really good and have horrible technique, and that's gonna like really really shorten the longevity of any career. So I really appreciated that aspect of this lesson and how it was different than the strictly classical approach that I had seen previously.
Yeah, Donna, I'm going to let you come back and do any commentary you want on any of those things. Um, Go for it.
well, let me piggyback on what Camilo just said about function. My brilliant late husband, who I talk about all the time, Cornelius Reed, he called it functional vocal training because it's about how does the voice function, especially if you're working technique. What is functionally going on? Of course, as was just said, aesthetically, it could sound great, but it's all constricted. It's not functioning well. You're not going to have a long career with that. Who cares about aesthetics if the function is not correct? And as Cornelius said, wrote all of it, if the voice is functioning freely, it's going to be aesthetically beautiful. It's going to be whatever your aesthetic sound is. It's not going to be something I want you to do looking for, oh, as Cam said, you get that pitch no matter how you get it. Just get that pitch. Well, he's a choir director. That's all he cares about. I just want everybody in tune. I don't care how you get there. Now, the idea that anybody thinks that you can get the voice to work by force is folly. I mean, it's a quick fix that's not even a quick fix. And the idea that if somebody is not, quote unquote, working hard enough and forcing their voice, that they get yelled at because they're out of tune, well, that's somebody who doesn't understand voice at all. I'm sorry. It's just, no, you don't get there with force. How is it that when you watch a Barbra Streisand, and I'll go the opposite direction, my favorite classical singer, Sandra Radvanovsky, if you watch her, if you watch the other, they look like they're doing nothing. They're doing nothing. Are they forcing? Are they tightening their abs and pushing out those top notes? No, they're not. It's just easy. And they're singing. And Barbra Streisand, who Nellie has worked with, is still singing gloriously. And I don't know how old she is, but she's old.
80 years old tomorrow.
Wow.
Well, there you go. Happy birthday, Barbara.
Happy birthday,
God
Barbara.
bless her. Because that is a good voice that has longevity, because she knows exactly what she's doing and she is not forcing anything. So that whole idea that you use that abdominal area to force the note out may temporarily do, I don't know, something. But in the long run, it's just going to make you tighter and tighter and tighter. And you have to get there by skill, not by force. Again, I'm quoting Cornelius. He used to say to his students, you're young and strong now, but you're not always going to be young and strong. You have to sing by, not by force, but by well-coordinated muscles, by skill, not force.
One of the questions I had written down that's a great segue to is, how can we tell inside of ourselves whether something is shutting down versus it being free, even when you're young and strong and like you're getting there and so fine, but you hear a constriction sometimes that someone doesn't necessarily feel. What should we be looking for in ourselves to be able to tell whether it's free or whether it's constricted?
Okay, it's very difficult to be objective with that, because sometimes the constriction is slight, so you don't really feel it as a grab in the throat. Sometimes you feel it as a grab in the throat, but you think, oh, I just need to push through that. Some people do sing that way. That's obviously not the way to do it. You can usually hear it in the vibrato. Now, is the vibrato a nice even pattern? Does it have a big wobble? Does it have a little tremolo? Or is it straight with no vibrato? Now, if it's straight with no vibrato, something's not free. If there's a wobble, I'm guessing you're pushing the air too hard. If it's a nice tight pattern and it feels good in the throat, that's probably good. Then you listen for the vowel. Now, does an ah sound like an ah? Do you want to say ah, father? Or do you want to say father and it comes out father? Or do you want to say father and it comes out father? You have to listen for the vowel. That can indicate a constriction or not. And you could sing any vowel you want to. You should be able to sing ah, whichever one you want. But does one vowel or another produce something that's tight in the throat? Or does it shut down something in the back of the throat? Now, that doesn't mean that the back of the throat has to feel, quote unquote, open. It could feel compact like an E vowel. That doesn't feel as open as an A vowel. But the biggest indication is if you're working on a piece of music, and if you sing that A song, belty, aria, whatever it is, if you sing it 3, 4, 5 times and you're fatigued and you can't do that, there's something seriously wrong with that. Somebody can sing an entire opera and not be fatigued, and you can't sing a song 3 times in a row. That's not good. Alphaba can do 8 shows a week. Well, at least my Alphabas can. They can do 8 shows a week and they feel fine. And you can't sing Defying Gravity twice? Problem with that. So those are indications to say there's something not right. There's something constricted.
So that leads me to my next question for you, which is for Donna, which is, can you explain to we did this in our last group discussion, but also want to do it for these guys because they don't know you that well. Can you explain when you're working us in a lesson and then you go and do the top and then the bottom, like what you're actually doing there?
So what I do is usually if there's a problem in the voice, for example, you have difficulty with high notes or you have difficulty with low notes, it's not the low notes per se or the high notes per se. There's probably something in the middle that's mixed up that needs to be unmixed. So I'll work in the middle, I'll work in the upper middle, lower middle, whatever. Then I need to test it out. Then I need to say, okay, so how does that affect the high notes? All right, now we did the high notes. How does that affect the low notes? So when you work on one part of the voice that's maybe troublesome, then you have to check another part of the voice and say, well, did it make that part better or not? So if it didn't, well, maybe what I did in the middle didn't work so well. Or if I work of the high notes and then go to the extreme bottom and we lose the low notes, then I have to say, maybe we did something on the high notes that didn't work. So always going back and forth, and the voice has to be flexible. So for example, if you're a belter, I'm going to work the high notes on you. I'm going to work soprano high notes. If you're soprano, I'm going to make you you know, so yeah, Nellie hates working those high notes.
I hate it. I mean, it's fine. I'm used to it now, and I understand the reason for it now, and I'm okay. But it's true. Like we get up there, and I'm like, why, Donna? Why?
I'm like, hey, Nellie, that was an E above the high C, and she goes, ugh.
Do any of you have questions for Donna as far as from your lesson or from watching someone else?
I wrote down several questions. But
Oh, great. Bring it on.
Okay. So in, I think it was Abby's lesson, you asked her if she was singing legit or a belt. What is that? What does that mean?
So legit, when in the musical theater world, legit just means there's a lot more head voice to it. Belt means there's a lot more chest voice to it. So legit would be Rodgers and Hammerstein's Cinderella, or Rodgers and Hammerstein is a good example. Carousel, you know, what's her zig in Carousel? My brain is not coming up with her name.
I can't think of I know who you're talking about though, yeah.
But anyway, but those types of things, more soprano-y, they go a little higher. More belty is, you know, Mama Rose and Gypsy, and anything that Patti LuPone does, and you know, those more aggressive chest voice, you know, Chicago, you know, Velma and Roxy, you know, those types of things. So it's the how the chest voice is being used. It's much more aggressive with the more belty, and much less aggressive with the legit. But let me bring up a point now that you said that, because I brought up Rodgers and Hammerstein's Cinderella. If you listen to the original, which is filmed for TV, Julie Andrews' Cinderella, and you listen to who was it, Laura Osnes, who did the revival on Broadway. Yeah. Listen to both of them. You're going to hear much more chest voice participation in Laura Osnes. Not that Julie Andrews had a weak voice at all, but what used to be considered legit is not even legit anymore. You need much more chest voice for the quote unquote legit voice today than you used to. Just saying how voices change over time. I'm a Julie Andrews fan, love her, she can do no wrong, but I highly doubt that she would be hired today with that voice.
Okay, cool, thank you.
Another question?
From me or somebody else?
Yeah, from you. You said you had a list.
Oh, so like on me and Camilo's, and I think maybe Abby's, when like we're doing the note scales going down or going up, when we put the H before any of the vowels, again, speaking, I don't want to speak for Abby, but we were trained that that was how we stopped a glottal stroke, which is very ugly and not nice to listen to, was to put the H before it. If that's something that somebody like you doesn't like or doesn't look for, but like if I have a strong glottal stroke, how would we combat that without putting the H at the beginning?
So again, it's a question of balance. By doing the glottal, that's one extreme. By doing the H, that's the other extreme. We want the middle road because we don't want to go ha 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 because yes, it prevents the glottal, but it pushes the vocal cords too far apart. So it's overcompensation, and an overcompensation will end up being in and of itself a problem. Now, sometimes if somebody is the opposite, and I didn't have to do that with either of you two, but if somebody has an extremely breathy voice, those chords are not coming together. I actually literally use a glottal with them, even though obviously, yes, a glottal is not healthy. If somebody speaks with a lot of glottals, like anything that starts with an ah, that they do, you're going to have some serious vocal damage. But if your voice is always breathy like this, sometimes doing the will bring the chords together. Then of course we let that go, and then we let the glottal go. So we want the middle road. We don't want one extreme or the other.
Okay.
Yeah, Camilla.
So is there like a specific vocal style that's kind of like considered the foundational one, or like one that you should always go back to kind of just like reset, I guess, for lack of better
Well, a
phrasing?
lot of people, everybody claims to teach bel canto, and I put that in air quotes because they don't. If you read my husband's first book, that tells you exactly what, and it's called bel canto, what that's all about. It's about how do you balance the registers. It's not about breathing techniques or anything like that. That's all not correct. And he did a lot of historic research. I would say the foundation is always, what are the register balances doing? What is
Mm.
the ratio of tension, chest, voice, falsetto, chest, voice, head, voice? Now, there are really basically only two registers, chest, voice, falsetto, but I use the term head voice always being a combination of the chest, voice, and falsetto, because females really don't have uh, a falsetto the way males do, although we kind of do, but they kind of mix already, and it's a different kind of a mix. But you've got that hoo 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 sound, and you've got that ha 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 sound, and it's how you put those two together. It's never the one so dominating the other that the other gets lost altogether. Even in the biggest belt, there's a bit of that falsetto participation in there, male or female. So it's, in other words, when the chest voice is dominant, the vocal cords are very thick. When the head voice is dominant, they're much thinner. You need the right ratio of thickness to thinness for the pitch you're singing, depending on what sound you want. That's the basis of everything. Now, what I concentrate on, it's probably my Alexander teacher background that my late husband never really concentrated on, is what is the body doing? Because I find so many tensions in the body, as we just mentioned about the abdominal tension, that literally either pushes the air too hard or stops the airflow, that we need to have a balance in the body so that if the registers are balanced beautifully, but the air is messing everything up because there's either not enough, or it's getting shut down, or it's pushing the cords apart, then we have to address that. Does that answer the question?
No, for sure. Yeah, that's great.
Is everyone okay to keep going for a few minutes?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Cam, go
did you-
for it.
Sorry.
Please.
Okay, so still with like the warm-up stuff, I know that you said with, I think, all three of us that you had us try different words or vowels or consonants to get like a different tone or pitch or like intention for that. Why does like gu or ka or ga or ya, why does that change the intention of where you want the pitch to go instead of just singing the note?
Well, what it does is it changes the dimensions of the vocal cords. So, and as I said in the other lessons, an a or an ah will thicken the vocal cords. Literally, the physical shape of the cavity is going to change the dimensions of the vocal cords. Oohs and ohs will thin them out. So, if somebody is singing under the pitch or over the pitch, and it's not an air problem, because it could be, if you're cutting off the air, you won't have enough air to sing in tune, and therefore it goes under the pitch. If you're blowing too much air through the vocal cords and it's not in tune, that air pushes the vocal cords apart, bows them. So if we fix the air and that's not the reason, and it sounds a little bit out of tune, it could be that the chords are a little bit too thick for the pitch and there's too much chest voice, so then we need to thin them out, get a little bit more of the head voice going. Or vice versa. If there's too much of the upper, we want a little bit more of the lower, then we need to get thicker chords and a little bit more chest voice. Then I would use the ah for more chest voice, the ooh, oh for more head voice. Physically changes the dimension of the vocal cords, and then you can manipulate them and get things freer and more in tune simply because the mechanism is freer with those devices.
Okay, thank you.
Donna, does
What?
it also have to do like when you're deciding on a more than the vowel itself, but the whether it's a ka or a g or an l or a ya? Is that also about the shape of the cavity?
When I use anything that involves the tongue,
Mhm.
I'm trying to free up the tongue. So if I do a ka, as I said, I think it was in Abby's lesson, it directs the energy back there instead of quote unquote forward, and it frees the tongue because something's moving, as opposed to just trying to get a rigid, okay, now this is where I'm putting it, whatever. And then the back of the throat shuts down. That's what I like about ya. That's what I like about ga, ka, moves the back of the tongue. L moves the front of the tongue. La. Sometimes I do gla. Sometimes I do glia, moves the back and the front and the sides of the tongue, because a lot of people have tongue tension. But I can't say, oh, you have tongue tension, release your tongue. Yeah, right. It's like telling somebody who's nervous, oh, just don't be nervous. Oh, okay, yeah, I'll turn off the switch.
What's
So
the phrase like never in the history of calm down has being told to calm down and he calmed anyone down?
correct. So when there's tongue tension or laryngeal, whatever the tension is, it's a habit. It's not a conscious thing. Nobody wants to sing with tongue tension, but you can't volitionally let it go. But I can set up the exercises to help you let it go. Do a ya, do a ka, balance the registers, make sure you're not pushing with the air, all kinds of stuff. So that's what those are useful for.
Abby, do you have anything?
Yeah, I actually thought of something. So when talking about like longevity, and I just think like, oh, how are you gonna do like, how are you gonna sing this song so many times, 8 times a week, etc.? Does that just boil down to the functionality and kind of the work that we just did to help? Like, would that help expand your longevity? I guess is what.
Absolutely. Two things. One, yes, the voice has to be functioning in a relatively healthy way so that the muscles are relatively well coordinated. On top of that, then one has to build up the tonicity of the muscles. So for example, you've got the voice working very well, but now let's say you have to sing a really tough show. You have to build up the strength of those muscles. So you
Right.
have to get those muscles to be able to sustain it like anything else. You want to run a marathon, you don't start by running the marathon. You run a couple of blocks, and then you run a couple of more blocks, and then you run a couple of more blocks. Same thing. Also, just in terms of the age and having a long career, one should not sing things that are beyond them vocally when they're young. Now, you guys are all young. If you were to take on, I give the example, Abby, if you were to right now try to sing Mama Rose, I'd say you are out of your mind. You have to be well seasoned. You have to be mature. You have to be a person who's sung a few shows for a few times to get that kind of oomph to be able to sing that in your voice. Operatically speaking, the heavier dramatic roles, the Verdi, the Wagner, you don't sing those when you're 25 years old. You can't, you're going to kill yourself. You have to build up the tonicity of the muscles. So not just the well coordinated muscles, but then the tonicity of doing shows and doing the roles that are proper for your age.
Right. Thank you. Yeah.
Cam, hit us again.
Again?
Well, if you've got them, if you've got them.
Well, I was gonna ask about longevity, but I just got my answer for that. I guess I could ask this question. When we started this Q&A, we were talking about like tightness in your throat when you sing. Like if I wanted to sing Santa Fe from Newsies, I can sing that just fine 1 or 2 times through, but anything further than that, if I want to keep going back to back, it does make this super, like, it burns almost. And I know that I can use like these techniques that like you've given us to like, all right, well, I can't just do that. So let's go back and fix the problem and rework it. Is there anything else that you would recommend for something like that other than going back through the exercises we have that you've given us?
So if you've already sung it through twice and it's burning, you can't do anything to fix that at the moment. You just have to not do anything. You just
Okay.
have to wait for the muscles to relax because you can't fix it.
Okay.
It's like pulling a hamstring and saying, well, I'll just keep running. That'll make it better. Nope,
No.
it won't. Now, the one thing that will prevent you from having that burny feeling when you sing it is everybody sings way louder than they actually need to sing. And I include myself in that. Because we don't think it's loud on the insides of our heads. We think it sounds great and belty and good. And, we just think we need to be louder. We just think it needs to get that aggressive, loud sound. What I would highly recommend is taping it and listening back, because especially when I get students to mix the registers well, either with females belting or males belting, doesn't matter. When there's more of the upper side, when there's more of the head voice in the sound, they say, oh, but I can't sing with that. That's not big enough. That's not loud enough. Yeah, it is. In many, many cases, yeah, it is. Sometimes it isn't. Yes, I will give you that. But we all want the upper belty chest voice to sound and feel like the lower, and that's where it gets killed. When you go higher, if there's a little bit of a falsetto or head voice like feel, most people throw that out the window and say, well, I can't sing with that. Yeah, you can. I can't tell you how many singers of mine have taped their lessons. I say, that's a perfectly legitimate note. They say, no, it's not. They listen back and they say, oh my God, it sounded like totally chesty. That's not how it sounded in my head, and that's not how it felt. That's the biggest mistake everybody makes. And on the other extreme, and I've had rock singers who sing in rock bands, when you can't hear yourself, oh, you're just screaming. Because you can't hear yourself if you're singing in a rock band. You cannot hear yourself. You just have to trust your voice is there, and you keep that mix. And then you'll be able to sing forever.
Thank you. That is the end of my questions.
Okay. Anybody else?
Yeah, I'm good too.
Okay. Well, thank you all so much for doing this.
Thank
For
you.
having us.
It was great working with all of you.
Thanks for watching Donna Reed Talks Voice. If you have any questions for me about this episode, or if you'd like to join me on a future episode, please visit donnareedtv.com and click Contact.